Okay, we are in part 2 now of navigating difficult relationships for the month of September. If you were not with us last week, we talked about overcoming rejection, and today is navigating difficult relationships. I think they kind of go hand in hand, but maybe there's not any rejection involved in difficult relationships. It's just people are challenging, and one thing that makes people challenging is we don't always agree. And so today we're going to talk about how do we disagree respectfully? How do we disagree respectfully? I just want to ask you, throw this out for a discussion as we get going. If you were to think of, let's just say 3 for sake of time, what are the 3 most common disagreements in today's world that you think people argue about? Politics. Yeah. Huh? Money, okay. Religion. Those are probably the top 3, so well done. Politics, religion, and maybe, I don't know, depends where you're living. Maybe religion before politics, depends on what part of the country you're in. But politics, religion, money. Okay, we did those so quickly. Let's do 2 more. What about 4 and 5? What is good? Yes, okay. Another one. Public health. What about public health? Yeah, mask or no mask, vaccine or no vaccine. Okay, we're a little bit beyond that, which that's good, but for some, it's still a matter of constant concern. Okay, so next question. If it's politics, religion, money, public health, what was the other one? What is good? Why do these matters become so heated? Is it just passion? And they want to feel right, okay. Those often go together, though they don't have to. Like, I may want to feel right, but I'm not that concerned about it. And I may be passionately wrong, right? Okay. Someone else.
At least as far as politics and religion goes, a large part of our identity.
Yeah. Yeah.
So whenever you disagree, it's
Right. Right. This is kind of who I am. This is how I was raised. This is how I want to live my life. This is what I want my children to think and all that. Okay. Somebody else. Why do you think these matters become heated? Craig, why does politics become heated?
Just like what Howard was saying, if you disagree with me, or it feels like an attack.
Okay, so disagreement equals a disapproval, which may or may not be true. Okay? Any others come to your mind? Yes, ma'am. Everyone's convinced they're right. And that leads to a lot of tension. One more.
They perceive the other position to be per se immoral.
Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about that. Use smaller words, Mr. Consultant. Per se immoral could also be translated as evil. Okay, that was even stronger. Not good. That goes well with Julian's good. So not good and good. Okay, good answers. All right, so we've acknowledged some problems. We've acknowledged why they get out of hand. So how would you then define the antithesis of that? How's that for a big word? How would you define healthy dialogue? What is healthy dialogue? Okay, don't make personal attacks. Lance, what's healthy dialogue? Welcome.
what's healthy dialogue?
Non-confrontational. Okay. Very good. Lauren? Oh. Repeat back. I hear you, but this is why I think what I think. All right, so this is a real problem in today's world. I'm really grateful for whoever submitted this question. And again, most of these were anonymous. But going into an election year especially, I think this is really important for Christians to be talking about. How can we disagree but remain friends, do so in a respectful way? So I'm going to go through several of these, and then we'll leave time at the end for questions and comments and further conversation. You've already said some of these, but in my opinion, disagree respectfully. Number one, you got to listen very carefully to what someone is saying. Don't decide for yourself what they're saying. Listen to the words that actually come out of their mouth. Okay, Micah, you're a riddle guy. You seem like you'd be a riddle guy. Do you like riddles? Okay, got a riddle for you. You ready? Everybody help Micah out too, okay? It's going to go quick. Here's the riddle. You ready? You are an elevator conductor, okay? You're an elevator conductor. You get on the elevator. You go up 3 floors, 2 people get on. You go down 4 floors, 1 person gets off. You go up 5 floors, 3 people get on. You go down 1 floor, 4 people get off. You go up 3 more floors, 3 people get on. Go down 1 floor, 2 people get off. What's the elevator conductor's name? Now, what happened there? What happened there? Somebody say it. Focus on the details and less about, what did I emphasize more than anything else? Now, Micah is an exceptionally bright person, so don't hate on Micah. He was also under pressure. Y'all were watching him. But it's amazing. I've done this so many times with people. When I call on people, the person I call on, they never get it right. Even though you're not being called on, you might get it right because you're thinking, I gotta focus, and then I miss the point of the whole conversation. We do that in casual conversation with people. We think more about what we're supposed to, or we think less about what we're supposed to know and more about every little thing that comes out of their mouth, and we miss the big picture. We have to learn to listen carefully. People know when we're truly engaged. They really do. I could tell when I was talking with you, I lost you at about the 3rd sequence of floors. You're like, whoa, I knew I'd lost you, right? People know when we're truly engaged. And if we want to be heard, we must first learn how to listen to other people, or they're not going to listen to us. And in today's world, there's a lot of talking. There's a lot less listening about what people are actually saying, just what you think they may be saying. Okay, another one. Inquire sincerely. I'm a big believer in this. I do this when I teach Bible class with y'all. This is not a setup. What do you mean by? Like you just said, I believe X. That's really interesting. What do you mean by X? Because I don't want to misinterpret what you were saying based on how I interpreted what I thought you could have been saying. I want you to clarify for me, what do you mean by that comment you just made? Unwarranted conclusions develop when further clarification is not sought. So I might leave thinking you just really said this, when you might leave saying that wasn't what I meant to say at all. And that's a good advice for dating. That's good advice for marriage, right? Like a lot of fights can be avoided if you take the time to inquire, what did you mean by that last statement? And sometimes people might say, I don't have a clue what I meant by that. Can I start over? Sure, but at least I'm taking the time to sincerely inquire. Okay, next one. Consider openly. We can learn something from every person in every situation. I believe that with all my heart. When I study for sermons or Bible classes, I have a lot of different people that I'll read from, a lot of different sources I'll use. I read from people that I know I agree with 9 out of 10 times, and I read from people that I know I disagree with most of the time, because I want to hear both sides. I think it's unhealthy to only listen to people you agree with. And I think it's kind of intellectually dense only to read people that you know what they're already going to say, because that's what you already think. So consider others' point of views openly. That doesn't mean you're going to come to agree with them, but at least you've given the time to think about it. And if we begin a conversation with overwhelming presuppositions, it's already a waste of time. I'll tell you, a great way to watch that is going to be Tuesday evening at 8 o'clock. You know what's going on Tuesday evening at 8 o'clock? What's going on? Presidential debate. Has a debate really ever changed anyone's opinion about anything? Because people go into that debate already knowing what they think's right. And they're not considering, does the other side maybe have a point here? And we wonder why there's so much tension and so many bad disagreements in politics. Same is true of religion. Some of my best friends in the world have been preachers of different churches that were not churches of Christ. And every time I talk with them, I'm like, well, you've got a really good point. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I really like what you're saying. Consider what other people are saying. Lauren mentioned this, and I think this is very important. Repeat closely. It's respectful to hear you say, I hear you saying. Because one, that shows you're actually listening, and two, it confirms, are we on the same page? Are we communicating correctly? Because I may be hearing something you're not saying at all, and you may be saying something I need to hear, but I'm not hearing it. So when there's a point of contention, repeat back what you just heard. Thank affirmingly. I know these are all verbs, but we'll run with it for a while. Thank affirmingly. Even if you don't agree with someone's position, thank them for sharing it with you. I think that goes a long way of improving dialogue and encouraging dialogue. It builds trust with people that I'm not going to attack you for what you just said. I'm going to hear you out. And then I'm going to be appreciative that you trusted me enough to open up and share it with me. And what does that do? That builds channels for future dialogue, further respect. When you, I'm talking about dating for just a second. When you have that first big fight when you're dating, and you find a way to overcome that first big fight, that does a lot for your relationship. Because that sets a precedent going forward of, okay, it's not always going to be, flowers and rainbows, and not everything's going to be perfect. When problems come, we've now proven to each other we can talk through this. And we'll get better and better at it as time goes on. But one of the ways you do that is you say, thank you for sharing that with me. I appreciate you opening up and telling me what's on your heart. Share humbly. I think Kim was alluding to this at the beginning. State your position with sustenance and evidence. Like if you're going to, like we often say, don't show up to a gun show with a knife. Like if you want to have a real conversation about something, do your homework, state your position, explain why you feel this way. Here's such and such study. Here's such and such verse if you're talking in a religious conversation. Like I need to communicate more than this is my opinion. This is based on a precedent of some type. State your position with sustenance and evidence, but don't ever believe, and certainly don't ever communicate, that you're never wrong. Don't ever do that, because that shuts down the conversation. So one thing I was taught, leadership development stuff with people, mainly coworkers, or your boss, or if you're leading a committee, that can be really hard, especially depending on who's on that committee. Or if you're a minister working with, we have 13 elders here, so I technically have 13 bosses. That's not always easy. They all don't necessarily share the same thoughts about things. So when you're dealing with numerous people and it can get kind of tense, one of the best ways to take the dagger out of the tension is when somebody says something, you immediately say, you may be right. You may be right. And if you're going to say it, you got to mean it. Like, you may not think that they are, but Alec, you may be right about that. You very well might be. And then I can say, here's how I see it. What does that do? Why can Alec get upset with me if I begin my position by saying, that could be true? What is there to be upset about with me then? If I begin the conversation by saying, what kind of harebrained idea was that? You're not going to hear anything I say. But if I say you may be right, totally different conversation. This is a big one. We have to detach our perceptions of things from people. Someone's opinion is just that. It's an opinion. It's not an exhaustive measure of their values. And I think maybe where we see this the most, again, back to the political conversation, if I vote for such and such party, that I agree with everything that that party stands for. That's unfair. Like if I vote Republican, that doesn't mean that I agree with everything that comes out of Trump's mouth. And if I vote for the other side, now Harris, that doesn't mean I agree with everything that comes out of Harris's mouth. But you can't define an entire person based on one issue. And if you do, I guarantee you, you're not going to have a respectful disagreement. You have to look at everything that that person brings to the table, everything that that person values, and don't make it just a one-issue conversation. Never allow one perception to define an entire person. All right, last one I'm going to share. This should be a given, but this is very much biblical. Prioritize peace. I love this verse out of Romans 12:18. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Two big things there. If it is possible, and as far as it depends on you. Sometimes living at peace is not possible. Let's just acknowledge that. Sometimes you're never going to come to an agreement, and even if you have a disagreement, it may not be in a godly way. But don't let yourself be the blockade to that happening. That's why Paul says, as much as it depends on you, not the other person, as much as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Okay, those are the things there again. Listen carefully, inquire sincerely, consider openly, repeat closely, think affirmingly. Wow, that's a long outline, isn't it? Share humbly, detach perceptions from people, prioritize peace. So, that's all I have. I want to open it up to y'all to ask questions. Surely you have more questions about this one. So next week we're going to be talking, where do you draw the line? Makes Thanksgiving weird. I think you give it a good college try, right? You continue to have open conversation. You consider their position. You thank them for their comments. You repeat back to them what you heard them say. But if you find yourself, this would be my rubric, just my rubric, but if you find yourself always leaving that conversation feeling worse than you did before it began, it's probably not a good conversation to keep having. And that's probably not someone that you need to keep in your life. That's what we call toxic. Like if this person always makes me feel worse, that's not who I need to spend my time around. I don't think that's unbiblical. I don't think that's mean. I think that's part of being a peacemaker. Sometimes peace comes from division. So that would be my suggestion. Yes, sir. No, you're good.
But kind of bringing those conversations to at least see their side, and then they see your side, and maybe you guys can agree.
Are you talking political or religious things?
Political, religious.
Well, those are two different answers. Political or religious? Okay. All right. Political. Okay. So you're asking, make sure I heard you correctly. You're asking, do I continue to pursue someone even though I know we're not on the same page? Okay. There's a lot to that question that I don't think can be completely answered in one answer, but big points. Number one, how old are you? 29. I can almost assure you with the same amount of confidence that I made the offer about people saying in the debate you may be right. I can almost assure you that when you're 49, you may have some different opinions than you have at 29. So your opinions and perceptions are going to change as you age and mature and experience a little bit more life. And you may come to realize not everything was as black and white as I thought it was. Number two, that's also true for the person you're dating. Number three, I got to consider their background and their upbringing and why they think the way that they think. Because when you learn why someone may think what they think and they have good reasons for it, you may begin to soften your conviction on that issue that maybe I may not understand all of it. I'll give you a perfect example. One thing Suzanne and I have disagreed on, political landscape. Can I talk about this? I'm going to do it anyway, but I just asking for me. Okay. Health insurance. Health insurance. Okay. Someone says, why in the world would it be wrong for the government to provide health care? People need health care. When that law was passed in 2012, y'all were, I guess, in high school or about to start high school. How old were y'all in 2000? Were y'all in high school in 2012? Okay. Okay. When that happened, I was a young preacher, and I lost my insurance for my family because I made too much money to qualify for government insurance and not enough money to get any help. So that put me and my family in a position of $1,200 a month that I didn't have to take care of insurance for my family. Now, if I explain that to someone who says, well, providing insurance to everyone's a really good idea, they don't understand it's not for everyone, and it leaves some people having to pay for it that can't afford it. And that may make you change your opinion one way or the other. And there's a lot of issues like that out there, that it's not as black and white as the media portrays it. There's two sides to the conversation. So I would listen to both sides because you may learn from both of it. All in all, and I've said this before, there's a difference between politics and morals. There's a difference between politics and morals. You cannot legislate people into a better sense of morality. Okay? If I disagree with you while we're dating on the sanctity of life and God's plan for life and God's plan for marriage and what God would have us do, I need to seriously consider whether or not this person is the right person for me. If we disagree on tax rates and bonds and things in schools, and those are things we can talk about all day long, but we can't disagree over the nature of life and God's plan for the home, because that's biblical. And I wouldn't encourage you to date someone who doesn't feel that way for biblical reasons, not just political reasons. Make sense? Okay. Anything else? These are really good questions, very good comments from y'all. Very thankful for that. All right. Lunch is at Street's Fine Chicken, and hope to see you back tonight at 6 o'clock. Have a great day.